class? So how was your test one?
Very bad, sir.
Awesome. Very good. Awesome. Is it question 1, question 2 and question 4 is same like past year, right? It's like question 3, I think most of you did it awesomely. Anyway, the past is past. So once you get the test paper, what you can try to do is, you can actually try to use MPLab to actually try to simulate what's the actual answer. So I tried it with another class. The moment it's all of a sudden, you know, spicing out the tongue. So I say, ayah, so. Say enough with the ayah, Allah. Finished already. Can't do anything. The moment, but the only thing is actually you can learn how to use MPLab. Haven't marked your papers yet, maybe tomorrow. So we're going to continue back with our chapter 2. Can all of you see the screen? Yeah. So where did we stop last? We actually stopped last at here, the data directives. Now, as I mentioned earlier, so in order for my voice to actually reach to the back, all of you need to be silent, otherwise you won't be able to hear me. So if you want to hear the back, so please kindly be silent. If you have any question, please raise your hand and I will attend to your question. So the last week we actually stopped at data directives. Now there are a few sets of data directives here, and we actually learned about the DB. DB means defined by. Now there is also the counterpart which is actually DW, is actually defined word. Now what is the function of this DB and DW? These data directives can be used to store data or string characters in program memory. I have already explained the usage, why we want to do so. So I won't be repeating in this class. So we actually stopped at using DB, defined by. So we have seen the difference when you store, you can actually store defined byte allows you to store, defined byte means you store in a byte format. So that's what you're doing. So you're storing the data in 1 byte. So as you can see, a hex 34 is actually 1 byte number. So what defined byte does is, it stores each value in a single byte location. So the first address it will store the first byte, the next higher address it will store the second byte. So difficult to see like this, right? Hopefully you can try to focus on it here. So as you can see, in this main program we only have 2 lines, which is actually move LW and also move WF, which is this one. This line, move LW and move WF. Of course all these are commented, which means it's not considered in the assembler. So the line after this is actually DB, which means move FW has the opcode of hex 6E00. So which means 0, 0 will be stored in 1C and 6E will be stored in which address? Did you understand my question? I'm saying move WF, it has the opcode of 6E00. This is the 16-bit instruction set in hex. So, and as I mentioned earlier, that one memory location can only store 1 byte. So this is actually double byte. 00 is 1 byte, 6 is another byte, so it's double byte. So the value hex 00 will be stored at address 001C. My question is, where will the 6E will be stored? Which address will the 6E, hex 6E will be stored? 1? 1A. 1D, yes. It will be stored in 1D. So you can see here. This 00, the lower byte is stored at 1C. And then 6E is stored at 1D. So therefore the next one will start at 1E. You understand? So the line after move WF is where I am storing my 8-bit data. So what are the numbers I am storing? Hex 34. Do you see 34 here?
Yes.
Where is hex 34 stored?
1E.
The next address after move WF, which means the last one it stores is 6E at 1D. So the 1E will start with
34.
hex 34. After hex 34 is what? Hex 35. Hex 45. After hex 45 is 5, 6. After 5 is 6 is what? Do you see? Actually, I have only entered 3 datas, right? And it stops with 5, 6. Then you may say, ask why here is 0, 0. The next line is actually defined by micro P is easy. Why it didn't it continue straight away after 5, 6? Because whenever you start a new line, it always must begin with even address. Get it? So when I put here, it has to start from here. 4D, 69. So that means this is already ASCII code. So if you want to see in ASCII, you can see here. Micro P is easy. Why we have N, 4E, V here, or why we have this character? What did I mention last class? Did we load this character N, 4E, V?
Indicates the.
But why is it displaying something here? I didn't store this string. The reason is because the data that we're storing here coincidentally matches with one of the ASCII characters. So that's why it's actually displaying. So this ASCII table here is whatever data which is here, if it corresponds with the ASCII letters, it will display here. So coincidentally, whatever that we store the character like 3, 4, 4, 5, all this, it actually corresponds with ASCII character, so it's displaying. Understand? So next one is we supposed to come across DW, which is defined word. So what is the difference between defined byte and defined word? Let's see, I just changed this one into, okay, never mind. I'll leave this so that later when I share the code with you, you all can try to experiment with this. So I'm going to change this dB to dW and see what happens. 10. This is the last instruction, right, which is after move WF. After move WF is supposed to have dW. What happened here? What's the difference that you see previously? Can you all see this in our first place? I would really appreciate if you all can say something.
You can see.
What is the difference between what happened, the difference between dB and dW? What's the difference that happened here?
pick the code line.
Yes.
Code address.
Do you see that? Earlier it was 3, 4, 4, 5 and 5, 6. Now is 3, 4, it occupies one whole 2 byte location. 4, 5 occupies one whole location, and 5, 6. So what it defined word means? Defined word means whatever value that you get, you'll define it as a word. Even though the character here, the value here is actually 1 byte, what it will do, how does it know between the difference that this is the first entry, this is the second entry? Comma. Comma differentiates the different entry. So even though this is a single byte, but because you use define it as a word, so what it does, it will take this single byte, it will add 00 in front, and it will consider it as a word. So that's why it actually becomes like this. And same goes with 4, 5. Single byte, you make it as double byte, same with 5, 6. Can you get it? So when do we use DB and when do we use DW is quite easy. When the value that you want to enter is a single byte, you use DB. When the value is 2 bytes, then you use DW. When I mentioned the value is 2 byte means something like this one. You see this? 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6. Which means DW is more appropriate to use for 16-bit value. So you use DW. If it's 8-bit, you can use define byte. So is it clear? You use define byte for a single byte. You use define word for a double byte value. Like for example, this one 3, 4, 5, 5 is actually double byte. So you want to use define it as a word. Now let us see in terms of the string. Does DW has any effect? So let's try to change this DW and let's try to build this. So we go here. Is there any difference? I ignore the character in front because we added extra value, right? Does the micro P is easy? Anything change? No. If you see here in the symbolic, the last one is 5656, right? This is the last value. The next line is starting for the ASCII code. But if you see, in the ASCII code here, it doesn't define it as a word. It still define it as a byte. You see, it's still the same. 6940726370. Even though if I use dB here, define byte, and I build this again. This is still the same. 69407263. It is still defining it by byte. Why? Why is it defining by byte? Because this is a character, it's a string. If you define it by a byte, you can see there will be some spacing between. And it cannot also do that for a string character, because 00, whenever you put, like just now earlier, when we define byte for hex 34, it automatically adds 00 in front, right, to make it as one word. You cannot do that with ASCII characters because hex 00 will translate into another character. So that means at the end you won't get micro P is easy. You'll get some M something, I something, C something. So that's why it still defines it as byte. So to conclude, defined byte is used to store a single byte data in program memory. Defined word is to store double byte. And for string, defined word or defined byte doesn't make any difference. It's still the same. It still defines byte for the character. Any question up to this point? Yes or no? Ladies and gentlemen? Any question? No. The next thing that we want to learn is set and also EQU. Set and equate. These are the two things that we want to do. So when do we actually use set and when do we use equate? So set is whenever we want to assign an address to a variable. Equate is when you want to equate a variable to a particular value. So let's try to see. Now let's take the example of adding two file registers.
What does equate?
So can you give two addresses that we want to add?
0703 X 07 X.
I might create my own address. Okay, let's say we want to simple task. Okay. So the task that we want to do is we want to add the content of hex 10 with hex 11 and store the answer at hex 12. So usually how we'll actually do this? We'll actually move F into hex 10 into working register, and then we'll add the content of working register to file register with hex 11. We'll store the answer in working register, and then we'll move WF to hex 12. Do you all agree? You all agree? So, whenever you, of course this is a simple program. Of course you can see this is actually a simple program. And now because I mentioned to you that this is actually addition between the content of hex 10 with hex 11 and store the answer at hex 12. Now this, you know, you can actually understand this more or less because it is a short program. But let's assume if it's a long program and you have written some program, then you want to pass to someone else and someone else sees numbers like this. So as you can see hex 10, hex 11, hex 12, they'll be wondering what on earth is there. So sometimes what we do is we would like to use data directives to assign a name so that it will make more sense. So instead of writing hex 10 and hex 11 and also hex 12, so we can actually assign a name or variable name to this hex 10, hex 11 and also hex 12 so that it will make more relevant. So the data directives for that, data directive to store the value in program memory should be after your main program. A data directive to so here will be the data directives. So the data directives, let's say if you put here number 1, you're going to use set. Set means you're assigning an address to it. So you're going to assign address hex 10. Number 2, you assign the address hex 11 and result you assign it to address 12. Is it okay? So you are using this data directives to assign a name to the particular address, so that in your code, instead of using addresses, you can use the data directives. So you can put number 1 here. Put number 2. Okay. Now when you see something like this, at least it will make more sense. Or you are moving the value number 1 into working register, and then you are adding your number 2, and then you are storing a result. So this is a simple application of using data directives to assign address to a particular file register. Any question on this set? Because the next quiz is going to be on this.
It's assigning a name.
Yeah, this is assigning a name.
So only
Yes.
address or
Should it be before the main program? Or
Yes, good question. So your friend Amani is asking, where should you actually declare these data directives? This set data directives should be just right after the hash include. Just right after hash include is where you're supposed to write this data directive. The dbdw, where should it be? It should be just before end. To put it in a simple term, this db and dw, that means this is a data directive to store data in program memory. This one should be declared just before end. Okay? Any other question? Sorry, Tiban, you were asking.
only for address is it?
Yes, this is only for address. Next is we're going to see EQU, equate. Just now one of you mentioned about the move literal value, right? This instruction, what you see here, this instruction, it doesn't care what's inside num1 and what's inside num2. It doesn't matter. Whatever inside num1, you're going to move it to working register, and whatever is in num2, you're going to add with the num1 and you're going to store in working register, and whatever the result in working register is going to store at result. This instruction will do that. But now let's say we want to actually load a value inside so that we can actually perform the addition of the value that we want. So for that case, we have to move literal right.
Yeah.
So that way we need to load 2 values inside. So can you give me the first value?
X07.
This is the James Bond effect, is it?
Yeah.
So where do you need to move this to?
Num1.
Yes, you need to move it to num1. What's the second value?
03.
Is this now?
Num2.
Is this okay? So now, instead of just writing the values here, we can also assign a variable name for this value. So whenever we want to do that, earlier we actually assigned a name for the file register. Okay, it's the file register. We actually assign a name for the file register. Now we are assigning a name for the content. That means the data. So you can actually use, now you have set, so here you can use maybe value 1. Now what you use is you're going to use EQU. You equate it to, what's the value, the first one?
X07.
7. Then the value 2, you equate it to X03. So here instead of writing like this, you can actually straight away write value 1, and here you have value 2. I'm just showing you the application of EQU and set. You won't have any error. Okay, just In essence, set and EQU are actually the same. In essence, set and EQU are actually the same. So when I say it's the same, students tend to get confused. They say, so when to use? So I just tell that it's the same, but just to remove your doubt, use set to assign address. Use EQU or equate to assign value. Is that simple enough?
Yeah.
Couldn't be more simple.
So this one also right after the hash.
Which one? Yes. It should be after hash include and before program start template. Someone was asking some questions, no? Yes.
When you set the name like value 1 and value 2, is it case sensitive?
Yes. It is case sensitive. So is there any question before I proceed to the next one? Oh yeah, before that, I want to ask you something. This Friday evening, do you all have tests?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, maybe not this week, maybe the subsequent week or the week after. I think we might also need to have classes on Friday evening. That's 3 to 5.
3 to 5.
3 to 5.
After the test class. The reason is, as I mentioned earlier, I'll be flying off on the 9th. I'll be coming back on the 12th. Then 15th, I'll be going away. I'll be back on the 17th. Then the following week is midterm break. Again, I'll be flying off. But the thing is, the first week, that means Wednesday, until Wednesday morning, we still have class. The Thursday tutorial is burned ready. The next week, I'll be back ready. Monday class, the 2 hours class is safe. And the Tuesday night, as soon as finish night, I'm off. So the Wednesday morning and the tutorial. So when we come back, the Friday thing, we have to think about it. Now I will discuss after. Now you are at test pressure. That's your test finish. Okay, so take note. There's another example. I think I'm not so sure how many examples I have uploaded in Moodle. Once we are done, I'll show you the complete form of a program that can have all the different elements. So the thing is, why we'll see that is so that you know where each part is supposed to be like. Always take note that the program start template and main program, don't separate them. Don't busybody go inside or slot data directive here or keep this together always. The program start template and the main program. So either it's like going to be like sandwich only. Here either going to be data directive and bottom is going to be the data directive to store in the program memory. So don't disturb this lovely couple. Let them be together. So next thing is going to learn is macro. Yes, this is not the supermarket macro which went bankrupt. Yeah. We're still running in UK. Oh. So UK. So come back here. Go to the next one. So what is actually a macro? So macro is actually a group of instructions that are grouped together and assigned a name. One or multiple arguments can be input to a macro. By entering the macro name, the same group of instructions can be duplicated in any place of the program. User program is made more readable by using macros and becomes more productive by saving the text entering time. Of course, this is the theoretical aspect which I am reading. So, in other words, this is something similar to function. Of course, in assembly language, we also will have function. We call it subroutines. We don't call it function. But this is something similar to that. It's macro. So, the format of a macro is like this. When you want to declare, you should have the macro and end macro. We're not going to use exit macro, we're only going to use macro and end macro. So the example of macro you must have like this. You must actually give a name. Oh, you can't see my pointer. So a macro must have this definition macro here and must end with end macro, and the macro must be given a name. Inside it consists a few sets of instruction. So in the main program, you just need to write the name of the macro, it automatically executes all this. So let's see an example for the addition that we have done just now. So this is actually the instruction that we do right to add. So the macro also should be before the program start template. So we can give a name add, then we will have macro, and we should have end macro. Always start with the macro and end macro. So what we're going to do now is, I'm just going to take this part, the addition part only. Why am I not taking this one, the value? Because this set of instruction on top here is a very specific set of instructions just to load that specific value. So that means you cannot repeat, you cannot use that macro for other purposes. So now I'm just going to take this one. What this one will do is, this one will add num1 and num2 and store a result. So I'm going to cut this one. I'm going to paste it here. Is it okay? So I'm going to paste it here. So here in the main program, what I should call is, I should call add. Because add is the name of the macro. So let's try to build this. Let's view file registers. So this one will be dealing with X10, 11, 12, right? After add, I'll just put NOP here so that we know where's the progress of the PC is going. So now I'm going to press F7. So to start, you're going to load this value into so it loaded hex 7 here. Then I'm going to press again, you got to load X3. Now see, it is pointing at add now. When I press F7, do you see I straight get answer? And it goes to NOP. So what actually happens is, when it executes add, it goes up here very fast, it executes everything and comes back to the line after the add. So it means it performs all these things. So now this macro instruction here is a very general adding instruction, which means I can use to add two different other values as well. For example, now I have done this. Actually, I can copy paste this whole thing here. Paste it here back. Now here I'm going to use value 3, value 4. So I'm going to add the value here, value 3. Any values you want to give? So I've added two different values, which is hex 34 and also hex 22. So let's look at this. What I wanted to show now is, supposed to put here add. What I wanted to show here is, I want to show that by using the same macro, I am able to perform addition of two different numbers. So what I have done here is, that means this macro is a general instruction which is able to add any two numbers. As long as the two numbers are stored in num1 and num2. As long as they are stored there, we can actually use this instruction macro to actually add these two values. So let us try to clear back the memory.
Now how you clear memory?
Go to debugger, clear memory, GPR. So F7. So you can see we load the value 7 here and also 3. Now the PC is actually pointing at add. I'm not using magnifying for this because it's difficult to see. So when I press F7, actually it goes up here very fast, executes and come back to the next line. That's what's happening. So you can see I got the answer for the first one. Then I'm moving the second value, which is 34, 22. Then I'm going to use the same macro. So it is able to add again. So that is macro. You can use it repeatedly. So you must make it a general instruction inside there. So for now, don't worry about what type of general instruction that I can do. What I want you to understand is the existence of macro. How do you actually declare a macro? Because this is one of the very popular questions in quiz. Quiz, definitely there will be set, EQ and also macro. Mesti ada, confirm. Of course, you are inside within your heart. I know you're happy because sir, you'll be flying off already after and I come back. Hey, wait, this week Thursday I'm still here. Right? Yes. Next week only I'm going. Keep forgetting. So what I want you all to understand is how do you actually declare a macro? Is you must have this keyword macro and nm and macro. Must have the keyword. So you must have this keyword macro and also nm, and the macro you must give a name. Any name based on what is the task that it's supposed to do. And how do you call it in the main program? By just typing the name. This is what I want you to understand for now. In fact, we can actually have more than one macro. For example, let's say this is the add macro, right? Now I want to have another macro. Let's say I'm going to use set1. So what I'm going to do is, this whole value which is supposed to be loaded, we can just here. So here what I type, set1. What set1 will do? Set1 will load this value inside the register. What add will do? Add will actually call this macro and add these two values. Then I'm going to have set2. Value 3 and value 4. So my main program fully running on macro. So let's see, we build this. I'm going to play back my. So see what set1 does. Set1 automatically loads these two values. What does add do? Gets the value. What set2 do? Load this two value. What add do? Add this two value. Okay. Is it okay?
Yes.
Please confirm. Next, we're going to go. Any questions so far up to this point? Ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, the first part of chapter 2 is a lot of simulation based, so that's why I'm doing this. Okay, we'll take 5 minutes break. If you have any question, you can ask.
So the quiz you give us to set macro or we have to define?
You have to define it.
This is something like in C++, it's calling the some void like
Calling function.
calling function.
Same thing. Yes, in quiz I'll tell you to define your own one.
Shopping, I'm only shopping. So there's no limit for the variable name, right? You can give how long the name.
Not more than 32 characters.
Not more than
32 characters.
Type the correct word. Then I'll test it. See that. Right by 0, 0. At least you should understand.
Class notification to I akan hantar pada personal Gmail.
For being programmed.
So you understand? Benar-benar boleh settle lah. Yours is telling. Once I download it, banyak send Dropbox, the file is gone.
Upload before the program starts. Before the program
Somehow I didn't write. Okay, while waiting for your friends to come back, I'll just take attendance. So if you all can remain silent, the attendance process can go on very fast. So Amani, Sami Isa, Kaijen, Team Kaijen, Muhammad Daniel, Muhammad Faiz Sul Haizan, Muhammad Naim atau Muhammad Abdul Salam, Muhammad Ali Farag, Muawiyah, Muhammad Nazirul, Muhammad Syafiq, Muhammad Syarid, Muhammad Izzat, Muhammad Faiz, Muhammad Hazwan, Muhammad Shafrul, Navin, Nanda Kumar, Nur Haryati, Nur Shafika, Parvinish, Ratna Kumar, Sasi, Sharina, Shafi, Shafika, Shainatul, Enarasi, Iban, Tracy, Vinod, Sukwan, Yogesh, Amar Afiq, Amar Hazim, Amar Shami, Amir Ashraf, Amir, Arbaya, Atika, Dennis Lim, El Taib, Aziz, Usamadin, Ikmal, Kairunisa, Gayatri, Vaishin, Magir Hassan, Muhammad Safwan, Mohan Raj, Muhammad Hasman, Muhammad Zaidi, Muhammad Shafiq Azmi, Muhammad Imran, Muhammad Akmal, Muhammad Arif, Muhammad Ashraf, Muhammad Hafizi, Muhammad Hairul, Muhammad Hazim, Nazirul Zain, Nur Sheila, Nur Fazlin, Saif Adil, Sam Salim, Zulaika. Any names I haven't called? So we're going to continue back in the chapter of macro. Now just now the macro example that we did just now was that macro which doesn't have any input argument, which means it doesn't receive the input argument or doesn't receive inputs. So So when you call that macro, the macro will execute whatever instructions that is inside that macro. Now the next step is for macro which receives an argument. So macro can receive as many arguments as you want, and in the main program you should pass the argument. So let us see, for example, this set1 macro. Let's look at the set1 macro. Now the set1 macro will actually load the value 1, load the literal value of value 1 and also the value of value 2, which is defined here, which means it is fixed. These are the two values that it will add. Now let us say if we don't want to define like this, we don't want to limit to these two values. We want to use, okay, it's turning brown. So what did I say? So we want to use this macro. This macro actually is used to load value. But in this case, it is actually load a specific value, value 1 and value 2, which has already been defined above. Now, we want to use the same macro, but we want to have the flexibility of